Hey friends, welcome back to my channel and day 2 of our 13 days of Halloween series here at PhotoPlay Paper Studio. If you're just joining in and you want to get caught up, you can find a link for day 1 at the top of the description. And for today's project, we are going to be making a very fun flip folio created with some envelopes made with the envelope punch board. Each set of these pages has a full-size flip, a tip-in, a pocket that holds inserts, and a special photo mat. And we've got this arranged so that the pages open from different directions, so that just makes it a little bit more funner. There's plenty of room in here for all of your pictures and journaling, and I really did have quite a lot of fun creating it. So if you want to make one for yourself, then stick with me and we will make it together. We're going to be working with the Fright Night collection from PhotoPlay Paper. I am completely obsessed with the color palette of this collection, along with that really cool 50s retro vibe. We're going to need some envelopes to create the base for this book. I know you can't see these numbers on screen because I can barely see them in real life, but the guide here directs me to cut my paper to be 7.5 inches by 7.5 inches and then score it at 3 3/8. So I'm gonna use that great black cardstock that I picked up from Hobby Lobby. You were all thinking that I got so much of that black cardstock, but I really want to be able to create my own envelopes and bases. So we're going to go ahead and create our envelope here. And I do want to round the corners. So when we go to assemble our envelope, rather than traditionally having the larger side at the top, we're going to fold our flaps in so that we can create a pocket. We have created a similar style project recently where we made some cards that had tags on top, and that inspired me to work on an album using that same design. So the first thing I want to do is secure that top flap over so that we can use this portion as a pocket to hold an insert. So I just put a little double-sided adhesive there, and then I'm going to come back in with the score tool and just go ahead and reinforce that crease so that we get a nice flat section there. And then the portion that will fold over for the front, I just want to put some adhesive on the top of the bottom flap and the bottom of the top flap so that we can hide our adhesive in between those layers. So I'll just go ahead and remove that backing now. And then fold this over. The last step is to seal up the bottom, and I'm just going to continue using my double-sided adhesive. I'm not going all the way down though because I don't want my insert to get stuck in any of the adhesive that could be shown on the bottom there. So let's just go ahead and finish sealing up the bottom of this envelope. So you're going to need 4 of these for our folio here, and I've already created them and we're ready to start assembling. So another thing that I want to do is decorate the front of this envelope. So I'm going to choose some of the collection paper. Now, due to the imperfect nature of folded things, I'm just going to use my piece of the pattern paper here and just go ahead and overlap the edge, and I can trim that when it's done. So this piece of paper here is 3.5 inches high by 4 1/4 inches wide. So our finished envelope is going to wind up to be 5 1/4 high by 4 1/4 wide. So I'll just adhere my pattern paper, and then I can come back in and remove the excess. This will be easier to do now than when we start assembling the book. So in order to join our envelopes to the book, we're going to need some pages. And this piece is cut to be 5 1/4 by 8 3/4. It's scored at 4 1/4 and also 4 1/2. So that's going to leave us with our finished page size of 5 1/4 by 4 1/4. So our envelope will line up with that perfectly. And so let's just remove the tape. This is a good place to have that double layer of adhesive. And then I want to line up my envelope pocket toward the inside so that I know I'm not going over that score line and causing this to not function properly. So I'm going to have a pocket on one side, and then I'm also going to have a flip page on the other. So here's one more piece of that black cardstock. It is 5 1/4 by 8 1/2 and scored at 4 1/4, and this will be the full size of our book page. So let's go ahead and adhere that now. I'm just going to bring these corners together and then line up the side and the bottom, and this will be perfectly positioned. Okay, so I want to go back to that collection paper, and for this book I also want to have a tip-in so that I can utilize those really fun journal card cut-aparts. So I have my pattern paper here, and it measures 5 1/8 high by 4 1/8 wide. So we're going to get those nice borders of the black cardstock from the base. And like I mentioned, I did want to include a journal card for this. So I've got my black cardstock cut to be 4 by 4, and then I scored it 1 inch from the edge. And so now I've got my journal cards cut to be 3 7/8 by 2 7/8, and I'll get that border all the way around. And then I cut an additional piece for the inside just to have a nice finished look. I put a little bit of my tape there. I'm just going to wrap that around, positioned in the center. So now this will open to be a tip-in, and then we can adhere it to the page. So each of our pages will have a full-size page flip as well as a tip-in. And you can see that I am using both sides of the pattern paper. So I put the A side and the B side opposite, so you can tell that there is a lot of fun combinations of these pattern papers. And then each of these center portions is going to be covered as well. And because they all show together, I like for them to match. I have an insert here for our pocket, and the cardstock for this is cut to be 5 3/4 high by 4 inches wide, and the pattern paper is 5 5/8 by 3 7/8. And I did finish the front and the back because of the way our folio is going to open, and we can just tuck that down into that pocket. You see that it goes over the top of the folio, so it's really easy to pull in and out. There's a couple of last details here for the top of our pocket page. I want to include a pretty little die cut doily. This is from Gina Marie Designs, and then I'm going to use another pattern which was an offcut from a different set of pages so that I can utilize all of those bits and pieces and not make them into scrap. So I'm just using a nested circle die to cut my pattern paper and then an additional border. And then for this, I'm going to just add it with a bit of my Tombow. So I'm not creating a lot here. I'm just adding enough so that it doesn't splooge out and make a mess. So it may be hard to see on camera, but the indentation for this pocket is down here, so I want to make sure to keep my glue well below that level, and I'm just centering it side to side there. Got my stripes lined up even, and so this will be one section for my book. I have created some additional sections here, and they are made in just the same way with all of the same measurements. So I just want to join this to the portion of the book that I have already created. We're gonna go ahead and go back to our 2 glue combo. I mentioned earlier that we're going to adhere these so that they fold in different directions. So I want my first page to open toward the left like a regular book, and then I'm going to just adhere that with my glue and go ahead and line these up. You can assemble the book base before you add the pattern paper, but I find it's just as easy to do it this way. For me, it was nice to keep all of the directions of the openings so that I could position my tip-ins correctly because I wanted them to open outward. So I decided to fill in all of the pattern papers first before I finished assembling the book. So like I mentioned, this one is going to open toward the left. Now this section is going to open toward the right. And I'm just using different combinations of those pattern papers. I'm keeping in mind the scale and the color patterns so that it will be a definite layering effect and not get too busy. So I've got my insert here, and I've used a different pattern, and this is going to be kind of a photo mat if you have a special picture that you want to feature on the front. And then we've got our tip-in and the full page flip. So once we close this up, this one's going to go this way, and so here's another set of those patterns and another insert. This was a very good use for my paper because I was able to utilize most of the offcuts as I was working along to create the different layers. And this is the last set, so remember that we had 4 for this book and another insert here in the pocket. So this is going to be our book. What I want to do is finish this with my regular details that I like to add to mini albums. So I'm going to put in a ribbon closure. That will be helpful since our pages open in different directions. So let's just use this beautiful plaid from Really Reasonable Ribbon, securing it underneath the cover and the base of the book with just a little bit of tape here. To hold it in place. For the cover, I wanted to utilize some of the offcuts from cutting the inside of the book, and that left me with a piece of pattern paper that was just a little bit too small, and so I decided to add a second border, and I just pulled a coordinating orange from my stash. So this is going to sandwich that trim. I'm just going to pull that closer for a second and keep that in place. And I'm going to bring in a journal tag from that collection. I really wanted to feature that pretty blue in the front. And this large graphic number is, like I said, very retro inspired. I want to secure this with a little bit of double-sided foam tape to build some dimension, and I'm going right and higher than center because we want to leave room for our flowers. And this combination is inspired by the colors from the collection, so I've got that blue, and then I did create these flowers here from the offcut from our cardstock so that I know it would match perfectly. And I finished this with a little bit of netting and a loopy twine bow here is another bow on the back with the same coordinating ribbon. And I just made a compact, small little flower arrangement so that it could fill in that corner. So here is a spider web charm as a little bit of extra detail for the top right, and that helps to balance that larger flower arrangement. And I will cover the cut strings with this black button. I've got some sequins here as well. I've got room for 3 of them here on the left-hand corner of my image. And I'll just secure that with a little bit of my Tombow. Time for the question of the day. Would you rather read a scary story or watch a scary movie? For me, I'm gonna pick reading. I love reading. I read all the time. I have a Kindle membership thanks to the Tech Hubby, and I really take advantage of all of those free books. So let me know in the comments what your pick is. Okay, so that's our folio for today. Let's just take a quick flip through here. You can see we have all of those fun flip pages and the tip-ins and our pockets with the inserts. This was so easy to make, and it really was a great use of my 12 by 12 collection. I was able to really get into those scraps to add all of the additional details. I think it's a lot of fun to have the different orientation of these folds so that it isn't quite an accordion, but it is similarly styled. And I was able to get some use out of those larger patterns as well because we have full page coverage on these. What a fun way to document October or do a daily album. You can just keep all of your special pictures and memories in this beautiful little folio and have it for years to come. So that's all for day 2 of our 13 Days of Halloween series. If you enjoyed this project, make sure to join me tomorrow for day 3. And if you did like this tutorial, let me know in the comments by leaving me a big thumbs up. And remember, you can find links to our social media sites in the description, as well as links for all the products that I mentioned today. If you're not already, I would love for you to subscribe. And as always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day, and I thank you so much for watching. Bye.